Welcome to another edition of Carnivore Bites. I'm your host, Jeff Sherman, along with Dr. Eric Lopkin. A lot of things going on in the news. Biden, Camilla at the center of all of that. How could they not be? You're talking about Laurel and Hardy. Anyway, in the political environment, we have the senatorial race, and we've talked about this over the last couple of weeks. It went from a red wave to like, I don't know. I actually would have handicapped it 3 weeks ago that the Democrats had or had about a 55% chance of holding on to the Senate, if you will, or not going to the Republicans. I see the way things are going that there are 47 states or races clearly blue, 49 clearly red, and four toss-ups, including Georgia, Pennsylvania. And by speaking of Pennsylvania, Fetterman was on a interview with NBC, which is hardly a right wing news network, and basically they even reported that he was totally out of it. So, what am I saying? Is that I think at this point, in a snapshot, yeah, there's four toss-ups, but things are not going the Democrats' way. We have inflation hitting 8.5%. Companies like Intel uh, announcing they'll be slashing jobs. The only question would be we're going to have a end of inflation party again on the White House lawn. But the point is, and then we have also looking at the rail strike that was supposedly averted by Amtrak Joe. That looks like it's come off the rails, no pun intended. And also then gas prices skyrocketing as well. That further bolsters the inflationary pressures crippling America. So what am I saying, Dr. Lopkin? I think we got about 4 weeks left. Events do not favor the Democrats and their chances. What do you think?
No, they don't favor the Democrats at this point. More and more, even Democrats are coming out and saying that Fetterman is not capable of doing the job if he wins. I think Pennsylvania is going to go to the Republicans.
I do
And
so.
that being said, that gives the Republicans 50 seats right there,
Yes.
which means the best the Democrats can do is hold the tie that we have right now. The odds on the Republicans losing all of the remaining three races is pretty slim. So I
Especially
think the
like
Republicans,
Arizona.
yeah, Arizona is looking like it's going to
Ohio
go
looks good.
Republican. Ohio,
Even.
just 3 weeks ago, the Democrat had the advantage by 5 points. Now, I believe the last poll I saw, the Republican has the advantage by three. Now,
And
granted, that's still within the margin of error, but something else that a lot of pollsters have been saying over the last 3 weeks is that Republicans are not answering the phone. So all of these polls will tend to favor the Democrats. So if the Republican is up and it favors the Democrat, that gives them even more of a lead. So I think the Republicans are going to take both the House and the Senate. I don't think it's going to be a huge wet red wave, but I think it's going to be large enough that, yes, they will take both houses. And it looks like they're going to take a number of gubernatorial races in states that just a few years ago, it was inconceivable that a Republican could win. Oregon looks like it's going to go Republican in the gubernatorial race.
well, let me just
New
interject
York,
one thing. Let me interject one thing on that. More of a comical interjection is, yeah, it was a 50-50 shot a day ago, but as soon as Biden goes to support the Democratic candidate, you can put that one in the bag. For the
yeah, I mean,
Republicans, no
yeah,
good can come out of that,
Biden going to Oregon can't possibly help their gubernatorial candidate. But I mean, we're
especially if
looking at
there's a dead person in the audience.
right. Yeah. I mean, that's a big problem. And the Democrats keep saying, oh, we have a messaging problem. We have a messaging problem. It's like, no, you don't have a messaging problem. You have a problem with the president and vice president not being able to form coherent sentences. They're fine when they're reading off a teleprompter,
Barely fine.
but the minute they go off script, they're gone. They're babbling.
Well, case in point, we have Camilla. Every time she talks, I think about haven't smoked pot in decades. Maybe I'm going to start again because it's a good laugh. I mean, she's totally out there, like basically talking, time and all about time. She went on Seth Meyers, who has a audience of 5, and that includes his family, and was just incoherent on that one as well,
She
with no
was
follow up questions.
Well, of course, there were no follow up questions. Late night comedians are incapable of
They're
doing
done.
follow up questions.
That franchise is gone.
It really is. And, Harris was talking on the Late Late Show, rather late night, about the border. And she's saying how, oh, it's political theater that the
It's
Republican
Trump's fault.
governors, right, they inherited a broken system from Trump. No, they didn't. The border was secure under Trump, and everybody knows it. But the big thing she keeps saying is, well, the governors down there are shipping out migrants, and it's political theater, and they should step up and come up with solutions. Excuse me, she's the border czar.
I,
She has had no solutions. The countries that she determined needed our help, because that was the core issues. Those countries have gotten worse since she started as border czar. And she was at a fundraiser in Texas and couldn't be bothered to go to the border. So the entire time she's been in office, she has not seen the southern border.
Well, I can't blame her handlers because she goes to the border. There's just going to be another word salad, and it can't go well. So you got to keep her away. Yeah, and you got to keep both of them away. Case in point, Uncle Joe flies to has a little summit, a little powwow with Saudi Arabia, which he declared a pariah regime. Even though they're an ally against Iran, but that's another story. So they had plans to increase oil production by X. Biden goes there either through stupidity, either he insulted them, or just looked incompetent, or all the above. He would have been better off never going there because they actually said, screw this, let's cut our production. And that is a truth. Not speculation. His visit did the exact opposite. A true diplomat, another Winston Churchill.
Well, I mean, let's take a look at Biden's relationship with Saudi Arabia. On the campaign trail, he called them murderers and pariahs. He has been desperately trying to get a deal with Iran. Now, Iran and Saudi Arabia are mortal enemies.
Hmm.
Everything he has been doing has been to antagonize Saudi Arabia and push them into the arms of Russia. So, why on earth would Saudi Arabia raise production to bring oil prices down, which is their primary source of income? On top of that, Biden has tried to destroy the American energy sector. So, why would any other country look at the situation and go, well, he doesn't want energy being produced in his country. We can help them out by producing more here when it's not in their best interest.
Oh, even
So, I mean,
even gaming it out, Doctor Lopkin. They want this guy gone. Okay, and I think speculating, and I've obviously never read anything on this, but I can only imagine he went there and probably was a total calamity, both making gaps, being insulting, maybe insulting to Muslim rules or edicts because he's so oblivious. Okay, probably putting his feet on the table, something stupid like that, and also we're just reflecting complete weakness and incompetency. And they said this guy's got to go. He's so stupid. He can make a deal with Iran that's going to bolster them. No, they want him gone. It's a political calculation.
Well, I mean, at this point, there is not a country on earth that has any respect for the US and Joe Biden. We've got North Korea firing off missiles, China threatening Taiwan, Putin invading Ukraine after Biden says, well, a minor incursion would be fine.
Yes, a
I mean,
slight pregnancy would be okay.
exactly. We
Yeah.
have no international presence. Biden, Kerry, these people have made us a laughing stock on the world stage.
Oh, they
When
can't
Trump,
believe the opportunity that's in front of them. If you're
no,
China, I'm going in the next couple of years. So I'm going to wait for a real president. What are you nuts about
no,
Taiwan?
they're taking advantage of the situation. And realistically, that's what any good political leader would do is you see an opportunity that's going to benefit your country, never mind the fact that these are completely evil regimes, they're gonna go for it.
Of course. I think one thing we should definitely just allude to again, you mentioned it about the gubernatorial races, about, blue states turning red. And I think that the Zeldin situation articulates that to some degree in terms of, basically having a violent incident right by his house. It just brings everything home, just like as we talked about the migrants. I think that's going to, obviously, he didn't plan it, he didn't want it to happen. I think that's helped him, and I think he has a fighter's chance, don't you, Dr. Lopkin?
At this point, he has more than a fighter's chance because every time the current governor of New York,
Oh,
and let's remember she was not elected to be governor. She took over because she was lieutenant governor when Andrew Cuomo was kicked out. So the voters never, came forward and said, "Yes, this is our candidate." Every time she opens her mouth, she puts her foot in it. She has no idea what's important to the people of New York. She's been relatively soft on crime, not as bad as some of these folks, but she has the ability as governor to fire the soft on crime DAs, and she has refused to do it. As a result, New York's crime has skyrocketed. Crime all over the state has skyrocketed. In fact, an FBI report came out stating there was a huge increase in crime across the country, but New York, Chicago, New Orleans, Philadelphia, and Los Angeles, all of which have had incredibly rising crime rates, refused to report their statistics to the FBI.
yeah, I heard that.
So
Crazy.
while the FBI is saying, yes, crime is rampant, it's actually even worse than the report shows because these high crime environments refuse to disclose the statistics.
Yeah, if sales are good, you probably want to report that. There you go.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of governors, we have DeSantis. There's a probe. Obviously, it's politically related about his migrant flights. I think they're getting a little worried about DeSantis, aren't they? More than a
They
little
are, yes.
worried.
The Treasury Department has announced they are going to audit how DeSantis paid for the flights sending migrants out of Florida. And of course, the effort that is being put forward by the Treasury Department to do this could better have been spent solving the problem at the border. But the Biden administration has no interest in solving problems. They're just good at creating them.
They're
And now they are desperately trying to blame everybody but themselves.
That's what they do the best, and you are right. No one. And I have to say, I give him the whole administration a solid gold award because I've never seen anyone, any administration, f it up in this short of amount of time. I mean, that's just a real effort. That's Herculean.
No,
You can't do that. Not everyone can do that.
it is absolutely amazing. Our
Amazing.
foreign policy has been screwed up. Our
Disaster.
energy policy has been screwed up. Our economy has been screwed up. There is nothing, and of course well, look, we spent all this money on infrastructure. Really, where are the projects being done? So far, there's no evidence that any of the infrastructure spending has actually created useful projects. And it reminds me of Obama when they had
Shovel
these
ready.
these shovel ready projects that
That
they
went
were
to
going
nowhere.
to fund, that all of these projects went nowhere. We're
Well, let
getting
me
the
ask you a
same
question
all
about
over
that.
again.
Let me ask you a question about that. Since you bring up Obama, and I think you talked about this months ago, but isn't it in fact that this puts further shade, to use a young person's expression, on Obama? Because this is Obama stage two. That is the Biden administration. The
Yeah,
people behind the scenes are Biden, Susan Rice, and others. Does this further hurt any legacy he has or had?
I believe it does. All of the people behind the scenes are former Obama staffers. This is essentially a third Obama term. And Biden doesn't have the cover that Obama had. When Obama would screw up, diehard Democrats just shut up because anybody that criticized Obama, oh, it's because he's black. Well, no, it wasn't because he was black. It's because his policies were terrible. And now we're seeing the continuation of those policies, and we're actually seeing how bad they were.
You know, something that's a really good point, and it has to go be recognized. It's it's actually in essence Obama having the proper amount of time to have his policies have the full weight of crap they really were. He
Yes.
didn't have enough time to let the shit really hit the fan.
No, and fortunately, we did have a red wave during the Obama administration, which cut after the first 2 years his grandest projects, which were reinvented into the Green New Deal, into the American Rescue Plan. And we're seeing how damaging they were.
I think that's very good insight. I think history will have to wrestle with that. I don't know how it will, given the liberal leanings of our higher education elites. We'll see how that goes. I actually saw one study they put him in the top 10 presidents of all time. It's like smoke another joint, dude. Anyway,
Yeah,
we have
that's
Hunter Biden. Looks like he's going to be served with an indictment.
Yeah, he has been being investigated by the AG in Pennsylvania. They have enough to indict him on tax fraud, as well as lying on the form to get his firearm,
Which is a felony.
which is a felony. Um, they're moving forward right now primarily because the statute of limitations is coming up. So if they don't do it now, they're not going to be able to do it at all. But these are, in terms of what he's done, talking about selling influence, representing foreign governments without registering. These are fairly minor
Oh yes.
offenses that they're actually going to charge him with. I have a hunch because I don't think there is a statute of limitations on representing foreign governments and selling influence. I have a hunch they're gonna throw these out, try to get an indictment because they know Joe is going to pardon him. I think they're going to wait on the big charges until the day after he's out of office so that Hunter can't be pardoned.
We'll have to see that. I have to ask you the question: how does this all play out? Not if, but when the Republican seize control of the House. I mean, there's going to be Hunter hearings. And
Oh, yeah,
someone's going to ask the question, who is the big guy?
there are going to be massive investigations when the
Massive.
Republicans take the House. They are going to get into why did the FBI not talk to Hunter Biden's business partners? The business partner has come forward and said he is willing to talk to the FBI. He has given them evidence. They have done nothing. They're going to look into who is the big guy. What did President Biden actually know? Honestly, I do believe there's enough there to impeach Joe Biden. I don't think they will because, again, unlike what they did to Donald Trump, impeachment is not we don't like you, so we're going to impeach you to get rid of you. Impeachment means you have had to commit a crime. So
Well,
I
I
think
think
they
there were
put it
crimes involved. I mean, I think there
there.
was
There are
influence
no, no.
peddling, money laundering with the big
There.
guy. He went from being financially strapped to how does this work? You know, obviously he's no genius in anything he does. You know, how did he end up having two houses in Delaware worth
No, no.
several million?
There are crimes that Joe Biden could be impeached on. However, if you impeach Joe Biden, you get Kamala. If you get him thrown out, you get Kamala Harris as president. And as stupid as she has been, as incompetent as she has not committed crimes. So there's no way to impeach her and get the Speaker of the House, who at that point will probably be a Republican, into the White House. So I don't think they're going to impeach Joe Biden simply because getting him out doesn't make the situation any better. They may put, you know, near the end, especially if he's not going to run for reelection, they may put, high crimes against him just before he leaves office so that they can impeach him and then the Republican will take office anyway.
I think that is likely because these are real crimes. But on the non-criminal perspective, I did see a mosaic of his, if you can call it that, of his lying and just also the show they had a psychologist on about how insecure he must be talking about I got 3 degrees, I graduated at the top of my class, I beat up corn pop, all the I mean, and just even back then being very vocal about it. I have a higher IQ than you. I got 3 degrees. I graduated bottom of his class. He got 1 degree, and he actually dropped out for a year. And he never taught at UPenn. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, he makes up these stories about how he grew up, about what he's accomplished. And what's really strange about this is these are lies that don't need to be told. They don't add
Oh,
anything
it's
to
George
his
Costanza.
reputation.
It's George
Yes,
Costanza. It's
it's just
hysterical.
he lies as a pathologically. And again, I'm not a psychologist. I don't understand why he would tell these useless lies, but he gets caught every time.
Well, he's
And
so
you would
dumb. That's
think that
why.
that by itself would stop him from doing it, but no. He talks about growing up in a Puerto Rican neighborhood. He didn't.
And he went to
He
shul more
talks
than
about
most Jews.
right. He's never been to temple in his life, as far as anybody can tell. And in fact, he's talked about times that he went to specific shuls, and the rabbis have come forward and said, "We have no record of him ever being here."
No, surprise, surprise. If that was Trump, they would have him basically have to take psychological examinations, but that's another story. Speaking of the overall shift, we talked about minority groups, Jews included, I believe, in this, especially Hasidic Jews, blacks, definitely Hispanics, uh, drifting away, and that's not the proper term, running away right now from the Democratic umbrella or tent. And now you have Tulsi Gabbard, who bitch slapped. the Democratic Party. Basically said, oh, and I agree with everything she said, elitist warmongers who basically preach, white hatred and victimization. I mean, just really, I don't know if it will ever be reported on the mainstream media, but went in tooth and nail.
Yeah, she did this in a video. The video is available on social media. So you can find it online, even if the mainstream media doesn't really want to show what she
Well,
did.
way too close to
But
home.
yeah, but she was absolutely right. And what people have to realize, and she's not the first person to say this, and I'm actually going to use Bill Maher's words. He said, "I didn't change. I didn't move. The party moved away from me." And that's what people are seeing. We're seeing more folks in Hollywood, a lot of stand-up comics who have gotten fed up with the Democrats' cancel
Even
culture,
Jerry
have
Seinfeld.
start yes, have started leaving the party. They're how bad does the Democratic Party have to be doing when they're losing Hollywood? I mean,
That's a new
you're
level.
talking yeah, you're talking about people who have said if you weren't a Democrat, you didn't work. And now they're coming forward and going, all right, you know what? They've gone way too far. Tulsi Gabbard put it very eloquently. She essentially charged them with what they are doing. And she is absolutely right. And all of these people who are leaving the Democratic Party have all essentially said the same thing. The Democratic Party does not represent the working people.
Do you think it's a
They
real
don't.
trend that has legs? Not just for a
It
year, 2 years. Do you think this is like a Reagan-esque moment 40
if
years
the
ago?
Demo if the Democrats get their act together, they can reverse this. I don't think they're going to,
They're
though.
incapable.
And I think the the biggest indicator was, I believe it's in Nevada, the police union that endorsed the incumbent there in their gubernatorial race refused to endorse him again because of the Democrats' stance on crime. Okay, now this is a union. When was the last time a union didn't just knee jerk reaction endorse the Democrat?
Possibly in the
So
Jurassic era.
yeah, so they're losing Hispanics, they're losing African Americans, they're losing Jewish Americans, they're losing, the white liberals that have supported them all these years because they've gone too far. When they start losing unions, they're in big trouble.
I would have to say that's you don't have to be a political master strategist. Yeah, that's when you you gotta have that come to Jesus meeting because things are
And
not going well. But
and
speaking of, oh, go ahead.
things aren't going well when Bernie Sanders and James Carville both come out and say, we are going to lose the midterms because you are focusing too much on abortion and not talking about the issues that people care about.
That is something when the planets align doesn't happen often. Yes. But also speaking of the political landscape and being out of touch, you had Adam Schiff and another Democratic bigwig, so to speak, uh, as America basically or Americans get swallowed up by inflation and high gas prices. They're in 5 plus star hotels, eating caviar and sipping Chardonnay at some highfalutin fundraisers in France. A little out of touch, Dr. Lopkin, you think?
Yeah, why? What? I mean, have the Democrats lost so many donors that they have to go to France now? I don't know why they're doing fundraisers abroad. First of all, if you're an expat, there's a reason you weren't living here. And with the Democrats being in complete control, the odds are they're the reason that you're not here. If the Republicans were in complete control, it would be their fault. This is just a matter of who has
You do have a
power.
very interesting point, though, Dr. Lopkin, because one analyst was basically saying exactly what you're saying, not about who's to blame, but there's no money here for them to raise. I mean, in appreciable quantities, because no one's in the giving mood. So you got to go other places to shake people down. It's like you're
Yeah,
going trick or treating, and your neighborhood's got no candy. You're going to another neighborhood.
it's absolutely ridiculous. And let's face it, because these are fundraising trips, they are being paid for by the donors. So why would you donate to a candidate who's using your money not for reelection, but to travel to France and stay in five-star hotels?
It's kind of like those charities that give to this XYZ, and then you do the forensic accounting, and it's basically the CEOs are getting paid 300 million, and it's like, really? And then 2 cents of every dollar goes to actual people in need. Yeah, when you're staying in, $2,000 a night hotels in France, you may want to rethink your donation policies. But speaking also of the ridiculous, and she never ceases to amaze me, especially even since she had the beer. I'm sure she drinks about a half a glass of beer every 5 years. That's Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, basically tweeting out that it was Indigenous People Day this Monday.
Yeah,
Speaking from
you
one
know
of their own,
the
who's
the
used,
the
essentially used, lied, and basically exploited Indigenous people for her own game. Let's call a spade a spade.
absolutely. Liberals always go fall back on Indigenous Persons Day, because the government decided, oh yes, we can't just call it Columbus Day anymore. But none of these people actually has any idea as to what Columbus Day is all about. And I did this research last year, but Columbus Day actually has nothing to do with Columbus. It was put in place as a celebration of Italian culture because prior to this, the largest lynching in American history, where 12 Italians were lynched for no reason, the government went, well, now we have to show the Italian community that we've got their backs, that we appreciate them. And they created Columbus Day, named for Columbus because he was the best known Italian at the time,
Yeah, but
to
isn't that true?
celebrate
Indicative? Isn't that
Italian.
really indicative of liberalism, based on emotion, little on the facts?
Right. They completely ignore the facts. Columbus Day actually has as much to do with Columbus as St. Patrick's Day has to do with St. Patrick. The, the holiday has nothing to do with them. It's just the name. And some of the claims that they make, oh, well, Columbus brought smallpox in blankets so he could poison the Native Americans. Really? You think they had the capability of transporting smallpox on purpose safely by ship in the 14 and 1500s? We couldn't even manage COVID now.
Exactly, or their knowledge base in terms of viral infections. But that's for another day. We still have the Steele dossier in the news, don't we? And the FBI.
Yeah, because now it has turned out that when the Steele dossier was handed over to the FBI, they offered $1 million for corroborating evidence. They wanted to prove this was real so badly, they offered $1 million, and they had no takers because there was no way to corroborate it because it was fake.
Does the FBI ever clean up its image? It's going to take years. They're a political hack
Honest,
organization. They're basically the brown
honestly,
shirts of the Democratic Party.
I think they will clean up their image
Haven't
simply
been doing it
because
lately.
Americans have such short memory spans. Because the idea that the FBI are a bunch of political hacks shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody. They were political hacks going all the way back to J. Edgar Hoover. The only difference is the side that's using them now. They've
Agreed.
always been politically motivated.
And you're right about J. Edgar Hoover. He actually was kind of an equal opportunity uh, uh, exploiter,
Yes.
or yeah, he went to Kennedy, had tapes of him with women. He basically leveraged even Nixon about some things he had. So he always knew how to play the game. I think that's an excellent point.
Right. So the idea that the FBI is politically motivated goes back all the way to the founding of the FBI. This should not come as a surprise to anybody. But
Still
Americans
dangerous
have
though.
yeah, it is very dangerous. But Americans have short attention spans, and eventually they'll forget that the FBI is essentially a political arm.
Do you think they'll ever forget Amtrak Joe as being the worst president in modern history? That's going to
Depends
be a stretch.
depends on how well the liberals that write the history textbooks whitewash his presidency.
Well said. Now, we'll close with CEO Boss of the Century. Her name of her company is Postcard Mania. Never heard of it, but it's an organization in Tampa. She's, as the caring person she is, really just having tremendous empathy and sympathy for her employees. Email them and saying, "Don't let the hurricane stop you. I expect you to report to work." Boss of the Century.
Yeah, this was absolutely amazing. I don't know if this is a publicly traded company or not. If it is, the board of directors needs to fire her immediately. No boss should ever tell their employees to risk their lives so they can come to work. This is business 101. Your employees are the most important part of your business. They're the ones that make everything possible. You need to take care of them. Telling them to come to work in the middle of a hurricane is absolutely ridiculous. It is
It's
unbelievable.
criminal. I mean, to put it in perspective, telling people to come into work in a snowstorm is inexcusable. A hurricane category 5? Wow.
Yeah,
So anyway, another great show, Dr. Lopkin, and our listeners can access us and pretty much anywhere great podcasts are heard. And they can also give input to what they liked about the show, what they would want to improve upon or think we should improve upon, and also suggestions, correct?
they can. If you want to find out, state what your opinion is on something we've said, ask us a question. If there's an issue you want us to look into, go to xvadio.com/connect. You can let us know what you're thinking. And of course, you can catch every episode of Carnivore Radio at xvadio.com/podcasts, the Carnivore Radio website, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Amazon Music, Audible, and any podcast platform that respects freedom of speech.
Thank you, Dr. Lopkin. Thank our listeners.
We'll see you next time.